Another Chicago Bulls loss happened last night as the Chicago Bulls took on the Dallas Mavericks in an ugly game in which the Bulls were let down by a couple of things. We're going to talk about what all went into that loss and how the Bulls need to start correcting some of these things. We're also going to look at Matas Buzelis' performance since he really shined in last night's game. And then we're going to talk about the Bulls being bad, but still not over with yet, as some Bulls fans will tell you. We're going to talk about all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And I want to start off, of course, talking about some of the takeaways from yesterday's game. Now, we did a breakdown. Not going to go into depth, but I'm going to talk about how some of the things in last night's games has really turned into trends for the Chicago Bulls, right? And why some of those preseason predictions of 28.5 wins, if the Bulls if they can't correct these things, those may end up being true. Now, the first thing is turnovers. Turnovers, yet again, 22 turnovers in yesterday's game against the Dallas Mavericks. The Bulls have allowed on the season 141 points off turnovers so far this season. While that's only an average of a little over 17, basically 18, when you look at it in the losses for the Chicago Bulls, the Bulls in losses are allowing 20.8 points allowed per off turnovers in each of their 5 losses so far this season. That's huge. When you're able to get that many points off turnovers, and then on top of the Bulls, how they allow points in the paint, it's going to be really ugly when it comes down to it. Billy Donovan saying this as well. The thing that bothered him so much about the turnovers last night is that they addressed it in shoot around and how the Mavericks have a high IQ and they gamble and reach on defense. So it seems like Billy Donovan is saying, hey, I saw this being a potential thing of happening. I tried to coach my team up and we just didn't execute the game plan. And that's why a lot of times, of course, when even me, I'm going to hold myself accountable because I do it a lot, right? Especially with Billy Donovan. You know, when I see things that this team does, I say like, well, damn, the coaching didn't have you prepared. But if Billy Donovan's basically saying, and he could be throwing his team under the bus, but he's saying, hey, I told them this was going to happen. They didn't do what I told them to do. They weren't out there in what we executed and planned in shoot around. And so when you're giving up almost 21 points per game just off turnovers in your losses so far, and then you pair that with the Bulls giving up almost 60 points in the paint in their losses as well, you're talking about almost 80 points that come off turnovers and that come off in the paint. Those are really efficient ways that teams can score, and that puts you hugely behind the 8 ball. The 3-point shooting, which the Bulls have been solid at so far this season, not so much last night, that's not going to overcome those things when you're allowing easy points in the paint and you're allowing huge number of points off turnovers. The Bulls have to find a way to get this turnover thing underway. And this isn't a game where you didn't even have Zach Levine, who's leading the team in turnovers. But listen, Josh Giddey had a bad night with turnovers. He had 5. Coby White had 4 turnovers. Patrick Williams had 4 turnovers. Ayo Dosunmu had 2. Dalen Terry had 3. So when you have that many turnovers, it's really hard to be in basketball games. Now, with that said, right, the Bulls could have, had they shot the ball better, 28% from 3 yesterday. Again, you live by the 3, you die by the 3. And then when you're giving up efficient offense for the other team, it's just hard to really overcome those things. So that's something that's definitely turning into a storyline with this Bulls team. Outside of their defense already being weak as is, right? You are completely giving up the teeth of your defense. And like I said, 80 points. Just keep that in perspective. You are giving 80 of the easiest points that you can get in basketball every single night so far in your losses. In 5 losses, you're giving that up every single night. It's hard to overcome that. I don't care that the Bulls are averaging. And keep in mind, it's not like the Bulls' offense is averaging at a huge, we're quicker in pace. We're really high up there as far as 3-point shooting and those type of things. But let's not sit here and act like the Bulls are averaging 120 points per game. We're not. We're averaging 113 points per game. So right there, you're giving up 80 points of efficiency, an efficient 80 points to opposing teams if they just play halfway decent. Not to mention if they shoot their threes decently. So it's no wonder that despite the Bulls' new offense, and while it's an exciting brand of offense, it ain't really amounted to nothing. You're averaging 111 points, but giving up 119 per game. And 80 of those, over half of those 119, right? 2/3 of it basically is coming off nothing but some of the easiest points that you're going to come across in the game of basketball. That's really unfortunate. And so the Bulls got to figure that the fuck out. And if they don't, it's going to be a tough season for the Bulls, right? And that's not to mention some of the other things we're about to get into. Because listen, I said it on yesterday's episode. Coby White has quietly been one of the Bulls' best players. But you got to be better. The inconsistencies from Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu are getting louder and louder. And of course, they're magnified right now, especially with Zach Levine being out. But Coby White last night, 8 points, 5 assists, 4 turnovers. He failed to get double-digit points for the second time this season, and this is a guy who is supposed to be your number 2 scorer, and he's not. It's been Vooch, it's been Zach Levine, number 1 and number 2, with Coby White coming in there at number 3. And efficient overall, he's still shooting the ball efficient on the season, but you need better from Coby. The inconsistencies are still there, and that's something that dates back to last season, where Coby White talked about the thing that he wants to work on the most is being a more consistent player. You got to be more consistent if you want to be a threat on this team. You just have to be. And so with him not doing that, a 3 of 13 from the field, 1 of 7, like I said in yesterday's game, we were combined 5 of 26 from Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu last year. And we're going to get to Ayo here in a second, but Coby has to be better. He has to be better, especially in games where Zach Levine's out. We cannot afford to have a Coby White that's just that shoots the ball that badly. We can't afford that. This team does not, the margin of error for this team is not in the way that we can really withstand much cold Coby White shooting nights, especially when Zach Levine's already down. And so Coby also has to be better, and this is turning into a storyline for the season is Coby White's inconsistencies. Now, he put together a nice stretch there. He had 4 games in a row of scoring over 20 points after having a game of scoring a single digit. So what the numbers are telling us is Coby White's probably going to have a good couple of nights coming up next. But the inconsistencies that have been there for Coby White so far, he got to get it together. He's still shooting a decent percentage from the field overall this season, but he just got to get that thing together. And if he can, of course, he's going to help the Bulls win games. But then Ayo. Now, Ayo gets a little bit more leeway because he has been so good defensively for the Chicago Bulls. But the thing is, you cannot get by on defensive alone, especially at a time where your team needs your shooting. Ayo Dosunmu was a 40% three-point shooter last year. 40% from 3. And so far this year, he has just shot the ball like absolute garbage from every angle. And it may come down to Ayo Dosunmu got to get back to attacking the rim. He may have to. Like, he's settling for a lot of threes. He's taken 5 3-pointers per game so far this season, and he's just not hitting them at any type of effective manner at all. He has to be better when it comes down to that, and if he can't be, it's going to be ugly for him. 17% from three-point range. That's what Ayo Dosunmu is shooting so far this season. You need better for that. Ayo so far this season is 7 of 40 from three-point range. Let's put that in perspective again. 7 of 40. He's only taken 78 shots. Over half his shots have been three-pointers, and he's shooting that at a 17% clip. And he's shooting the ball 38% from the field. That's not good either. We need better from Ayo Dosunmu as well in this. Yes, the defense is there. The defense is great. I give you a lot of credit for what you're able to do with attacking, being versatile defensively. But the fact is, even when he's coming off the bench, we need more from Ayo, especially with Zach, with Lonzo out, with these guys out. We need better. And so this is something to continue to watch over the course of the season as well. There's still a lot of season left to be played, a lot of reason to believe over the next 74 games that these guys are going to be able to wake up and perform better, but you need it. We need it sooner rather than later. And until those things happen, it's just going to be a difficult stretch for these guys. And Ayo saying this himself, just got to lock in. A couple of adjustments talking to Peter Patton. I expect those shots to fall because I put a lot of work into my shot and I've been getting open looks. And that's one of the things that's most disappointing about this. It's not that Ayo Dosunmu it's taking difficult three-pointers. He's missing the wide open joints. That's bad. You got to hit the wide open threes. You just have to do that at a better clip than what we are. That helps stretches the defense. That will put yourself in position. You just need that. We need better from Coby White in this. We need better from a few of these Bulls players to make no mistake about it. And so hopefully we start getting into place of getting that, because I tell you what, if these trends continue for the Chicago Bulls, like I said before, you're not going to just see the Bulls struggle this season. You could very well see them have closer to that 28.5 win prediction. Now, I want to be clear here. Even with all the struggles, the Chicago Bulls still right now sit at 8th in the Eastern Conference standings. There's still a lot of season left to be told, There's a lot of development that could be done as well. And so it's not done yet. I've seen a lot of Bulls fans basically say, oh, it's all over already. And we do this at the beginning of every season when the Bulls disappoint. Now, I'm not saying that this is a Bulls team to be patient about. We're going to turn it around and win a title or something like that. No, like the expectations for this team are ultimately low, right? And that may be why it's more disappointing that we aren't even living up to that. But we got some things that we can get better on it. Josh Giddey also has to be better. It was a bad game for Josh Giddey yesterday as well. The 5 turnovers, only 6 assists. That assist to turnover ratio is more. You should expect more than that from Josh Giddey. Also the rebounds, 3 rebounds. He's our second leading rebounder. We do need him and his rebounding. It's a really important part for the Chicago Bulls. So, we'll see what happens in that. Again, this isn't to crucify Josh or any player in this manner. It's just to say, hey, you got to be better. And we know that you're capable of being better. You just got to do it, right? And so we'll see what this team turns into, man, and how they perform tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves, which I almost said the Vikings. I'm always in football mode. And we'll talk about that here towards the back end of the show. But I do want to spend some time highlighting 2 players in yesterday's game. And, of course, the first one is Matas Buzelis. 4 for 9 from the field, 9 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 block, 13 points. He did that on 23 minutes. Basically what Matas Buzelis did is said, hey, I'm going to go out there and play my game. And one of the things that stood out the most is that teams were leaving Matas Buzelis open at 3. And he went 3 for 4 from the three-point line. 9 of his 13 points coming from the three-point line. And then he got 2 of those came from free throws. So Matas Buzelis played an overall very, very efficient night of basketball for the Chicago Bulls, playing the most minutes that he has for this Bulls team yet. And so you got to give credit for Matas Buzelis and what he's been able to do and turn this into. And it's great. It's absolutely amazing and great that Matas Buzelis was able to perform in that manner, because I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've been a little concerned about Matas Buzelis, but hopefully this is something that opens up Billy Donovan's eyes to the rotation and trying to find. And the thing is that if Matas Buzelis is in games and he's playing badly, you always got THT to default on. You always got Torrey Craig to default on. These guys who have been here around more. But I hope that it could go a long way in Billy Donovan realizing, all right, maybe the kid just needs more minutes. Maybe it was the 6 minutes per game, the less than 6 minutes per game that he couldn't really find a rhythm in. You got to give players time to find rhythm. But to Matas' credit, it wasn't like it took him a long time to get hot. Matas Buzelis, within the first 2 minutes of checking into the game, hit a 3 and got to the rim and finished at the rim. So those are things that, I think Matas Buzelis is taking all the criticism, all the talk around him and things, and I think he just put all that to the side and just said, hey, let me just go out there and play I'm just going to go out and play basketball. I'm going to do what comes natural. I'm going to do what comes to second nature to me, and I'm just going to go out there and play. And that was a benefit for Matas Buzelis yesterday, and you really saw that, the confidence that he played with. I'm sure this was a great confidence booster as well for Matas Buzelis on a season that I'm sure has not gone the way maybe that he hoped or thought it would go. Now, even at the beginning of training camp, Matas Buzelis said and admitted he didn't know how much he was going to be playing, but I'm sure he probably thought, I'm going to be playing more than what I have been. So it's really good to see Matas Buzelis coming along for the Bulls. Really good to see him perform in the way that he has. But then also Dalen freaking Terry, man. Man, listen, 10 points from Dalen Terry, 4 rebounds in this time, 2 steals, 1 assist. He did turn the ball over 3 times. But Dalen Terry's defense last night, he played defense on Luka, he played defense on Kyrie. He was really kind of that Swiss Army knife defensively that we've talked about him being for this Bulls team, and he showed a little bit of that. Playing 24 minutes, he played more than Julian Phillips yesterday, and that was because Dalen Terry brought it defensively almost every play and possession that he was out there, and you gotta love it for that aspect for Dalen Terry. That's how Dalen Terry can make an impact on games. That's how Dalen Terry can get more minutes on the court. That's what Dalen Terry can do. And in the time in a game where Jalen Smith was in foul trouble for a large portion of this game, who ended up playing about the same 16 minutes, but he wasn't shooting well at all. Dalen Terry's energy and things coming off the bench for the Bulls, with Ayo being in the starting lineup, it was only felt so much because the Bulls were playing such bad team basketball overall. But he got some really good minutes out there, and you really love to see that these 2 young players really stood up when they were given more opportunity. And we'll see what that means for Billy Donovan and what Billy Donovan does for these guys going forward as well. But, hey, you got to love that they were able to do that. But with that said, overall, I'll say this, man. This 8-game stretch so far for the Bulls has given us a lot to think about for this Bulls. A lot to think about. And it's really kind of wild to think that we've seen so much different things from this Bulls team in only 8 games, right? We've seen some of the highs. We've seen some of the very lows. We've seen some of those things. But like I said earlier, it's not done yet for the Bulls. And I think some people have as fans, we live in the now a lot, right? And that's what we do. But there's still 74 games left to be played, and the Bulls aren't out of it yet. It's not like they've gone winless or anything like that. This is still a season where the Bulls are still going to try to fight and compete. Now, how much they're going to fight and compete, where that thing's going to sit, that's going to be the story told over the course of the season. We'll cover that when we cover that. It is what it is there. But I think overall, right now, just looking at where this Bulls team is, there's still a lot of development left to be done. And when you look at the amount of the young guys that we have played so far on this early part of the season, I'm actually kind of happy with a lot of these young guys. Still disappointed, still have my concerns in certain areas, but the Matas, the Julian Phillips, Dalen Terry's, Billy Donovan really being intentional about playing those, at least Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. We'll see if it becomes more intentional about playing Matas Buzelis a little bit more. But development's still being done. Still huge questions. I didn't mention Patrick Williams very much on this episode because, honestly, I've said it all on Patrick Williams before. Like, there's nothing new to be said about P. Will. P. Will is P. Will. He's disappointing. He has some flashes sometimes. He hits some shots sometimes. But P. Will is a very sometimesy player. And I do think that regardless of the money that he got, you keep being sometimesy, you can take your sometimesy ass and come off the bench. It comes down to the other players on this team showing enough that they are going to be able to take that position. I don't know if that happens this season, but I tell you what, I don't know if I see if this continues this way for P. Will. I don't know if you can come in the next season with P. Will being your starter for. I just don't know if you can. And so we'll see how this continues to go. There's a lot of storylines left to watch for this team, and we'll just see how this thing develops. Now, one last thing that I do want to get into before I preview the game today is yesterday a rumor came out that the Indiana Pacers are interested in Nikola Vucevic. Now, I talked about this on the pregame show because it kind of came out around that time. And what I can tell from this is really unsubstantiated rumor from a Pacers writer that kind of tried to make it make sense. The reported deal that they gave up was like built around Aaron Naismith and some other players, like basically the trash. And I just don't think the Bulls would take that for Vooch, not at the level that Vooch is playing now. And, I can understand why the Pacers may want to pair Miles Turner with Nikola Vucevic, but here's what I'll say. With the way that Vooch is playing right now, the Bulls would be extremely foolish to sell low on Nikola Vucevic. That's just my personal opinion. I do still think there's a high probability that he could be moved between now and the trade deadline, but, we'll continue to monitor that. Like I said, I like to, that's why I don't jump out the gate reporting on anything or talking about anything. I like to really kind of get in the weeds and see where it's rooted from, where it started. And it really seems like this started just by a Pacers writer kind of throwing some names out there, less than it being like or actual report that the Pacers have put out feelers or have called the Chicago Bulls or anything like that. So, if you've heard that rumor, if you've seen that rumor, doesn't really seem like it's anything too major there. But let's get into this game tonight for the Chicago Bulls. Now, Billy Donovan did say that Zach Levine is improving and he could make his return tonight against the Minnesota Timberwolves. It is at home. If you watch the Bulls, they typically like players to make their return at home. So we'll see if that happens. But if Zach Levine does return today, what does this mean for the rotation of the Chicago Bulls? Matas Buzelis just got his meaningful minutes, right, for the first time. Does he go back and is he regulated again to 6 minutes? Not to say that it all should be built around that, but that is a question coming into this game. And then how well does Zach Levine play? Zach Levine's been given, and I talked about it on yesterday's episode, some of his best two-way basketball that he's played in his career. And so how does that help give the Bulls a jump? And they're going to need it against this Minnesota Timberwolves team because, listen, when you look at what and how they're playing, this is a team that is Ant is playing at an amazing level right now. He's shooting 11 3-pointers per game, hitting it at an over 40% clip. He's already said we have some judgments of him taking too many threes. He's going to keep doing it. But this is a Minnesota Timberwolves team that can absolutely fill it up against the Chicago Bulls, and you gotta be watchful and mindful of that because I tell you what, if you end up falling asleep against this Minnesota Timberwolves team and allowing them to get out in transition on you, and if you have the turnovers that you've had, it's going to be bad. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves are towards the bottom of the league of turnovers forced per game. They just haven't been forcing a lot at 11.9 per game. They're right above the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls at 11.8 as far as forcing turnovers. So the Bulls need to still be mindful of that. You don't want to allow easy offense to this Minnesota Timberwolves team because if you do, you can absolutely get cooked. the matchup of Vooch and Rudy Gobert, as well as Jalen Smith and Naz Reid, like what they throw out there, is going to be interesting to watch as well because Vooch has been playing really well. He didn't put up the numbers in yesterday's games that you're used to. And also seeing now the Bulls are coming off of the second of a back-to-back, are they going to have the energy? Are those legs going to be something that does cause more turnovers? Are they not going to have the lift on the shots where they're not going to be shooting efficiently, right? You're going to need to do that against this Minnesota Timberwolves team because, again, even when you talk about the Timberwolves, yeah, they're not necessarily like this one of the best defensive teams in the league or anything. Oh, no, that's not fair to say. They are in the top 10 as far as points allowed per game. So they are one of the better defenses in the league. But the Bulls have to be prepared tonight. They have to keep their mind about themselves. They have to go through their offense. I would like to see Josh Giddey do actually more facilitating. Now, his players got to hit the shots too because we were cold from three-point last night. But overall, I just want to see this Bulls team attack more and to get more into the things that work for their offense. This could very well turn into a long losing streak for the Bulls. I would love the Bulls to come out here and play with some energy that they've been missing in these last few games and get a surprising win today against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Not to say that it really changes anybody's outlook per se on where the team sits, but, we'll see what happens here, man. Overall, I'm excited about this game. We'll be live on the channel tonight covering all of it, so make sure you guys stay in tune with us there. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.